So much about this project is about problem solving. There are often many different ways of accomplishing what needs to be done, but the trick is finding a way that works with the limited resources we have, safely setting that up, and then completing the concept.
Alright, so Alex is out in Boston for the next 2 days at a film class, or I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's all about working with Premiere Pro and making videos for you all. So we're trying to get it so the videos take a little less time, because Alex works like just a stupid amount on each video. So hopefully we can cut that down a little bit. He can spend a little more time out here helping me, and we can make things go a bit faster. So I am not going to jack this completely out of the ground until Alex is back on Friday, but I want to do a proof of concept and make sure that we can jack it out so that we don't have to go back to the drawing board when he gets here on Friday. So, I've got it all chained up to the lifting arms. The jacks are underneath it. I'm going to start cranking away here and see if this thing either starts to lift out of the ground a little bit, or one of the welds breaks, or the beams break, or the whole thing topples over and kills me. I don't really know what's going to happen. But, we're going to find out. I'd call that proof of concept. It's definitely lifted it a few inches. And now that the slack's out of it, in theory, we should be able to crib up the ends really well and not quite lose so much each time. Alright there, Skippy. I think we're ready to do some raising.
Alright, let's get to it.
Alright, so I think if you want to get on one side, I'll get on the other, and we'll just stroke, 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 and hopefully nothing breaks.
Alright. Lifting a 9,000 pound plus object out of the ground is no easy task, no matter how you cut it. In our case, we had thought ahead, and we welded brackets around the mold before burying it, including 2 beefy tubular steel lifting arms. The idea was to chain 2 large 6x6 posts horizontally above these, and then jack those up with 4 hydraulic pump jacks. This would progressively move the keel higher out of the ground as we built it up with cribbing. As you can imagine, it wasn't the fastest process, but it worked real well. We worked back and forth between the 2 beams until we needed to move on to the next step.
So we're making progress. It's coming up out of the ground, which is good. But now we're kind of running out of cribbing, and this is all getting a little precarious. So we got to figure out if we're going to put dirt underneath it, or if we're going to try to bolt something to the ends of it, or what exactly we want to do so that we can take the cribbing apart and drop these bars and shorten up the chains. The real trick would be doing this not in the winter when the ground was frozen, because that's been one of our biggest hurdles. But it is what it is, so we'll figure it out. But once we get it to keep from falling back down in its hole, we can lower the chains, tighten that all up, free up like half our cribbing, and oh man, at this rate, I think by lunchtime we should have it out of the ground.
Yeah?
This is awesome. This is going quicker than we thought. The jacks are doing a great job. Can never have enough cribbing though.
Ready to lower?
I just did.
You did?
Yeah.
Are we just leaving this here and jacking it up again, or?
Yeah.
Una más!
Nope, perfect. I think I like that a lot better.
Me too.
Okay.
Lower?
Yeah.
We poured the keel just outside the boathouse so that we wouldn't have to move it very far, but we also didn't want to do it in the boathouse because of the risk of fire. With that in mind, it would have been nice to have a larger, clearer, and more stable area to work with and be able to set up stable cribbing. This would have made moving it forward easier as well, but we worked with what we had.
So I think it's starting to get a little too precarious. But I'm also hungry and it's cold. It's like low mid 20s right now. It's not even supposed to get out of like the low 30s today.
Yeah, it's pretty cold.
But maybe go inside and have a snack and warm up by the wood stove. Check out how that lead pour video is doing, see if folks are enjoying that or not. And then come back out after snack time and see if we can get some dirt underneath this and set it down into the dirt. And hopefully that'll give us enough that we can reset all of this, get the chains snugged up a bunch, and do one more lift and be able to get the rails underneath it.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Cool.
A little break to warm up wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. I'm sure the batteries wouldn't mind warming up either.
Yeah.
They don't like the cold.
With the precarious nature of the ground around the keel, we always had in mind the possibility that this thing could tip and fall. To avoid getting hurt and losing progress, we had to find a way to support it as it came up and out of the ground. With the dirt and ground being frozen around our work area though, this wasn't an ideal situation. In the end, we decided to use rounds of firewood. This actually worked really well, and despite some frustrations, we got her out of the ground and onto some rails and pipes to be rolled forward. This was actually hard and frustrating work, so getting footage kind of took a backseat to the actual task at hand. Basically though, we just got it high enough that we could fit some 4x4 poles underneath as rails, and then between the rails and the keel we put some heavy-duty piping. Finally, we planned to pull the keel from a tree outside the boathouse. We set up a system with a strong static rope and then multiple blocks in order to give us a mechanical advantage. So the rope went from the tree to the keel, back towards the tree to a pulley that was actually attached to a come-along, and then anchored back on the keel. Basically adding the pulleys or blocks gave us an advantage on every pull we did.
So let's go in there and lower those bottle jacks and set it down on the rollers and see what happens.
Alright, let's do it.
Alright, ready when you are.
Alright, cranking.
It's getting hard, man.
Keep going.
Oh, God.
Alright, I mean it's moving, but it's like barely moving.
Despite the mechanical advantage, the keel would barely budge, so we called it a day and we planned to reconvene the next morning and step it up a notch.
I'm pulling as hard as I can right now.
Yeah, we're gonna break something.
We set the system up again, but this time using one of Victoria's old anchor rods, thinking it might be more suitable for the job.
I'm gonna be here and have you be my runner. I should take that and run it out just past where those pallets are. Just set it on the ground.
And then we pulled out what we thought would be the big guns.
Can you pull those ropes towards you a little bit? Let's put it up here. things to be aware of. If anything breaks, it's gonna throw it in line like a gunshot. So if a chain breaks and a block stays attached, the rope's gonna take that block and hurl it with incredible velocity. So if it seems like anything's gonna break, holler, get out of the way, and try as much as you can not to be like directly in line with the line of fire. And I'm gonna have a hard time seeing you and hearing you over the tractor. So maybe like get off to the side by the lofting floor where you and I can kind of keep eye contact and you can kind of see what's going on. Cool. Ready?
Nothing.
I'm just sliding on the ice.
So while I went to go pick up another pulley for the system, Ian and Steve went to go pick up something that would definitely help us out. Steve modified the logging winch by removing the long fixed handle and replacing it with 2 nubs that we could fit long lengths of pipe over and use as removable handles with significant leverage. This system, although slow, worked the best.
Slow and steady is going to be the key here. Okay, so pop yours out. There you go, that clip.
Force would build up in the system until it would release suddenly with the keel rolling over the pipes. Due to the angle of it coming out of the hole and the difficulty in getting the keel to sit horizontal to and off of the level ground, we occasionally had to assist the back end by lifting it up using one of the jacks. Each time we did that, it would move forward a couple inches. It took us about 2 days to get the keel up and out of the hole, then moved forward about 10 feet. Now we needed to spin it to get it correctly oriented, and finally moved about another 10 feet onto the final resting spot on the cribbing.
Lots of wiggle room. Okay, hold on, let me get with you. Okay.
We're gonna hit over here too.
Okay, well let's just go to about till we hit and then we'll sort it out. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
Even with 2 large levers and the keel sitting on a relatively small platform, it was a challenge to spin it by hand alone. So we drove the tractor around back and used it as an anchor point to pull from with the come along.
There we go. Yeah.
Once it was in the right direction, we worked on setting rails back up so we could pull it forward and onto the cribbing.
Okay, lead on it. Yeah, I mean, you're through.
Push.
This did work well, and although it did roll forward, the lifting arms were a point that created much more friction than was ideal. We had left them on up to this point, so that if anything happened and the whole thing ended up sitting on the ground, we would still have a way of picking it back up. Now though, we were fairly confident that that was not going to be an issue.
Grab the grinder. Let's take the lifting bars off. I think we're good at this point. Ah! I guess I might as well just nip this one off while we're at it, huh? You ready?
Yeah.
With it close to where it finally needed to be, we had a couple more tricks up our sleeves to get the keel to move the last couple of feet needed.
My plan was just have the nib heads just hanging over a little bit.
Hey.
And the nib heads are hanging over just a little bit.
Sweet.
With the keel now in the boathouse, we have to clean up the top and sides so that they are fair, work on thicknessing and flattening the wood keel, and then we can start bolting things together. So before we wrap this up, I want to send a thank you to Ruth and Garett from Salt and Tar. They're another channel. They're just about finished with their George Bueller wooden gaff catch design. And they mentioned us in some previous videos a little while back, sent some traffic our way. So we want to pay it forward and tip you guys off to another channel that we've enjoyed. It's called Sailing Brupeg, and they're a trio that's restoring a 57-foot veggie oil powered ice strengthened steel expedition boat with the intentions of taking it down to the ice someday. Check them out.